The United Nations estimates that 3 million Africans die each year of AIDS, and 36 million are infected with HIV. Incidents of malaria, cholera, and polio are on the rise in Africa, all undermining social and economic development on the globe's most impoverished continent.
AIDS wipes out some of the most productive members of society in the prime of their lives.
Dilapidated healthcare systems are unable to deal with the continent's numerous medical problems. Clinics are ill-equipped and underfunded.
This is a growing epidemic with no end in sight.
One of the major problems that Africa faces is the lack of readily available, well-established medical infrastructure in many rural areas. So it makes it very difficult to effectively monitor patients. Beyond that, many of the drugs used in America are not appropriate for treating HIV patients in rural Africa. The drugs tend to be very toxic and have many side effects, and yet before now, they've been the only option. Aloha Medicinals has been working for many years on compounds for enhancing immune function for HIV patients. This leads to lowered opportunistic infections. It can be said that no one has ever died of the HIV virus. It's the opportunistic infections like tuberculosis or malaria that kill. By enhancing immune function, we can eliminate some of these infections or at least limit their severity. Years ago, Dr. John Holliday and his team from Aloha Medicinals set out on a quest to find answers for Africa and a solution to the HIV epidemic. Their search brought them to the remote mountains of Tibet, high above the plains of Africa. This is where our story begins.
A growing epidemic, HIV has become a crippling force throughout Africa. Fighting time and nearly insurmountable odds, one company searches for the answers. This is the story of the quest for a legendary creature said to be half plant, half animal. Possessing miraculous healing powers, this creature may hold the key to defeating this horrible plague. Reaching to the far corners of the earth, a group of scientists took it upon themselves to mount an expedition that could change the course of history and resurrect a dying continent. From Africa to Tibet, the global search for a cure.
In the West, we look at one drug treats one symptom. Rather, Oriental medicine has a long history of treating the whole patient. And Chinese and Tibetan medicine has historically has very good results in handling chronic viral infections. And that's really what we're talking about with HIV, chronic viral infections. And so we looked into how is Oriental medicine able to accomplish this. And one of the main, probably the main substance that's used is this rare mushroom called Cordyceps. In the insect kingdom, the insects don't have red blood cells. Rather, there is a single-celled organism that performs all of the functions of a red blood cell. It moves oxygen around, it's involved in immune function, and these single-celled yeast-like symbionts that live in the body of insects, this is Cordyceps. Even though these insects are living in one of the most competitive environments on the planet, they're exposed to virus daily, they are completely immune to all virus infection. Under certain conditions, when the insect dies, this blood cell, if you will, it transforms into a mushroom which grows out of the head of this insect. Every symbiotic pairing in nature is such that both parties must benefit. In this case, the Cordyceps benefits by having a host in which it lives, and the insect benefits because the Cordyceps produces certain compounds which keeps this insect healthy. This is a unique pairing that nature has given us, where the Cordyceps produces compounds which are antiviral in nature. It protects the insect from virus infections. And what we found is those same compounds which protect the insect from virus infection is also effective in humans. It's difficult to find these particular mushrooms that grow only on the head of this caterpillar because they are only found above 14,000 feet elevation in the Himalayas.
Aloha Medicinals has been working for years, developing these antiviral components that are non-toxic, effective, and can be used on a daily basis. They don't build up any resistance, and they don't cause any side effects. As they looked into mechanisms of action, they found it very effective in limiting the progression of HIV infection. Cordyceps has been used for more than 1,000 years in Chinese medicine, and yet it is virtually unknown in the West. It has the reputation and the tradition of being the single most expensive medicine in the world because it comes from such a high elevation in such a restricted geographical area.
It only comes out for 2 weeks out of the year, but there are about 6 billion individual mushrooms harvested each year, 200 metric tons of material, and this is a huge impact on the environment. So every year there are fewer and fewer of these mushrooms available in trade, and each year they're more and more expensive. The 2006 price from the nomads in the field was more than $6,700 per kilo. By the time that material gets to the major cities, say San Francisco, the price of that will be more than $40,000 per kilo. And because of the cost of these things and the value in the world market, there's a tremendous impact on thousands and thousands of people going there to harvest these. After taking sterile samples in the field, we had to try and start capturing the genetic material of these before they deteriorated. And there are no proper laboratory facilities available in Tibet at all, anywhere. And so what we had to do was create our own methods of doing transfers of this genetic material in sterile conditions to be able to capture this genetic stock before the cordyceps started to deteriorate.
By going into the field and collecting wild specimens, Aloha Medicinals was able to capture the genetic material and take it to the lab to analyze it. Using American biotechnology, they have been able to grow cordyceps on a substrate of grain rather than insects and produce them in large quantities. Produce them by the metric ton. From here, they extract the antiviral compounds, using this to make tablets or capsules that are then distributed throughout the world to people who need them the most.
By bringing these into laboratory cultivation, we're able to bring the price down to where it's affordable for everyone who needs it. And at the same time, we're able to ensure consistent quality. Like most natural products, from year to year and batch to batch and from area to area, the quality varies widely, whereas what we produce in cultivation is very standardized. That way we can establish effective doses, and everyone that gets it will get exactly the same dosing. Everyone will be ensured of exactly the same effect.
It's a fraction of the cost, but it's considerably more potent than what has been used in Chinese medicine for the last 1,000 years. What they are producing in the lab is about 5 times more potent than the wild collected cordyceps. Here is the actual readout of the active ingredients comparing the strength of wild cordyceps to the Aloha medicinal strain. One small sample collected in sterile conditions in the field will result in hundreds of millions of doses of medicine. The human body is currently home to 500 retroviruses. With this medication, HIV becomes 501. Aloha Medicinals has the tools available to make this low-cost, powerful, non-toxic medication capable of making HIV a manageable disease. It's a hybrid of natural chemistry and cutting-edge 21st century biotechnology, proving the ancient knowledge of our ancestors can be used in curing our modern plagues. And it's all from nature. It's a triumph of natural healing.
When we hear figures like 85% HIV positive, this is really just the tip of the iceberg. What this really means is that these countries are dying. There are no telephone operators. There are no truck drivers. There is no one to plant the corn. There's no one to harvest the crops. These countries are populated with orphans and children with no one to watch out for them, nobody to feed them because the adults are all dying of HIV. This is what we do it for. There are people who would have us believe that it takes a synthetic compound that never existed in the universe until some drug company invented it in a test tube. This isn't true. Everything that's available to keep these bodies healthy is available from nature. If it weren't, we would have been extinct long ago. And Aloha Medicinals is on the forefront of bringing these effective, cheap, non-toxic medications to the people that need them the most. And we will continue to do so as our research expands into other species of cordyceps. Answers for tomorrow are evolving today